This week on Pit Stop with Don and James, we review the driver standings. We look back at some famous Australian drivers. And we make our bold predictions for the upcoming Canadian Grand Prix.
Welcome to Pit Stop with Don and James. I'm Don.
I'm James.
All right, James. We got an off week this week. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Since it's off week, sporting my Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach hat along with Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach shirt from last year. So I'm pretty stoked on it.
Very cool. On my off week, I wear my worn out McLaren hat.
Nice.
I got my Circuit of the Americas t-shirt from back when I lived down there and would swing by and go drive karts and have to get some swag. So yeah, it's an off week. We're between the Spanish Grand Prix and the Canadian Grand Prix, and yeah, we're diving headlong into summer here. It's hot. It's hot here, probably even hotter down where you are, and yeah, looking forward to recapping a little bit of where we are through week 9. I think we just finished the 9th race of the season, and looking a little bit forward to the 10th round, which is in Canada. And yeah, even though it's an off week, we got plenty to talk about. Before we dive into some of our topics, do we have any F1 news to speak of that we need to talk about?
Only F1 news. Something sort of interesting on George Russell's Instagram. He no longer has Mercedes listed on there.
Oh boy.
He's just listed as a Formula One driver. Not really sure why he's not listing Mercedes on there anymore. So more to come on that. I believe his contract is up at the end of the year. Hasn't signed with anybody yet. Maybe I don't know who would replace him at this point. Maybe Hamilton's trying to get back out of Ferrari and get back into Mercedes. But if George doesn't have a seat at Mercedes next year, I'm not really sure where else he would go. He is a Mercedes driver. Has been for a while.
Hopefully it's just some unnecessary drama caused by a social media snafu. I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I like George. I think he's done fairly well. I don't feel like he's not like pulling his weight over there. I don't know if Toto has some kind of gripe or something went south or whatever. I don't know. That's crazy. Hopefully it's nothing.
We've kind of been sort of singing his praises this season at how well he's done, right? I mean, he is sitting 4th in the championship right now. He's right behind Verstappen. He's ahead of his teammate, Antonelli. Antonelli's all the way down in 7th. So no reason he shouldn't get a seat next year, especially at Mercedes. So hopefully you're right. It is just a little snafu behind the scenes. I don't predict he'll lose the seat.
This is the kind of age that we're in, in professional athletes and other entertainers. Anything that they do on social media, it gets overanalyzed, so it could just be something like, I don't know, maybe somebody even runs his social media and made a mistake. Who knows? But
yeah, it's very possible.
Or maybe he's open to, looking at other places when comes time to sign. I think he's not renewed yet through any, for a drive next year for Mercedes. So yeah, interesting. Well, we'll keep our fingers on that pulse, I guess, to see if we ever get any news, and that'll definitely be a topic to discuss, right? I guess another thing was, I thought this was kind of interesting. I was reading an article about Flavio Briatore, and
give it to me.
Well, since last year, he's been talking super bold about Alpine being able to compete for wins and championships. And I think he sort of toned it down. On his latest statement, he was like that, saying that they need to, quote, at least sometimes see the podium. That doesn't sound very Flavio. I mean, I don't know the guy very well, but my understanding was he's a pretty bold talker. So a little bit of a back off. Not maybe he's trying to be realistic because, and I guess we'll get to this, but Alpine is dead last in the championship at this moment. They've got 11 total points on the year. So, maybe he's like, well, let's not overpromise and underdeliver.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. And I mean, so far nothing has really come from them. Well, nothing came from Jack Doohan, unfortunately. But nothing's come of Colapinto yet either.
No. Yeah,
not exactly a good showing his last race.
Colapinto's got 3 more guaranteed races, I think, and seems to me like he'd have to do better than he's doing in order to, be considered to replace Jack completely. I don't know.
Well, he's done 3 races so far. Monaco, he finished 13th, but Monaco, again, one of those anomalies. Spain finished 15th, and his first outing in Italy finished 16th. So still hanging around the back.
Yeah.
He's got 2 more races to reach that number of 5, and I guess we'll see if he manages to eke out a point somehow. I looked at the forecast for Canada, and it doesn't show any rain so far. So we'll see if that stays true over the next week.
Yeah, we're within the 7-day forecast now, so maybe they can start getting a pretty good picture of whether it's going to rain, because it did rain last year. So speaking of that, where do you want to go first? Should we recap the season so far, or should we just dive right into Canada preview?
Let's start with doing the drivers, like where everybody's standing so far.
Yeah, that sounds
kind
good.
of our thoughts on that.
Okay.
And then maybe we'll jump into, that'll be a good segue into our main topic of Australian race car drivers.
That sounds great.
Because right now, our overall leader, Oscar Piastri, representing Australia, having, I wouldn't say a dominant season, but he's up front for a reason. But he's only 10 points ahead of his teammate Lando Norris. So it's been a lot of back and forth between the two of them.
Right. Yeah. In terms of race wins, yeah, it is dominant. Oscar has 5, Max has 2, Lando has 2 wins this year. And
I wouldn't really call that dominant.
Hey, 5 is he's 3 ahead of both of those guys. But you're right, in terms of points, he's only 10 points clear of Lando. So points is really what matters. But those race wins, I mean, that's good. 5 race wins in a year, even if he never won another one, that's a good year,
Yeah, I suppose you're right.
But yeah, Oscar is sitting at 186 points. Lando is 10 points back. Max is then 39 points back of Lando. And then George is 26 points behind Max in 4th, like you said. And then Charles Leclerc is only 17 points behind George. So the battle for P3 really is, I mean, almost within a race. Like George is plus 26 behind Max. So on a sprint weekend, he could make up that difference. He could get within 1 point with a race win if Max didn't pull any points in a race. But yeah, pretty insane. Good battle for. I mean, really, frankly, from Max in P3 to Lando in P2, 39 points isn't a whole lot. But a little bit more of a cushion. That's going to take multiple races to make up. And that would be if Lando had DNFs or something. So
yeah, everybody's sort of about, at least in terms of teams, where I thought they would be. The big ones are always going to be up there: McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, in which they are, and Red Bull. So I guess all 4 up there, with the exception of the number 2 driver at Red Bull, who can't seem to find a point to save their life. It is truly heartbreaking. Tsunoda's only got 10 points to his name. and Behrman has 4. So 14 points between those two drivers for
Yep.
being in the second seat at Red Bull. Not exactly what I would call a great season for them. But Albon, man, in Williams, having a fantastic season, sitting at 42 points. The great thing about being at 42 is they are only 6 points behind Kimi Antonelli, who's sitting in 7th. So one good race from Albon or one bad race from Antonelli, and they are going to switch spots super quick.
Yeah, very very cool. Williams is a good story this year for sure. Williams has struggled to being at the back of the grid really for several years. I don't even know if how much it went before when I started watching, but I've been watching for several years now. Um, and they are currently in P5 as a team with 54 total points. I mean, that's a big deal for Williams. P5 a couple years ago was like unattainable, not even something they could
Even
even
a top 10 was
think about.
unattainable.
Right. And they're ahead of Racing Bulls, which is in P6 at 28 points. So I mean they have a gap, that the other bottom teams don't have any kind of a gap like that. So yeah, Williams in P5 is nice, and they are fairly far behind the other top 4 teams. Um, I guess just to sort of recap, the top teams, McLaren, like you said, and they are 197 points clear of Ferrari in second place. So that's a big gap for first. It's really looking like there isn't much hope for any constructor to take McLaren down. Ferrari, so it's McLaren 362, Ferrari 165. Mercedes is just behind them 159, so only 6 points back to P3. That's a no gap whatsoever.
Right.
And then Red Bull at 144, so they're 15 points behind Mercedes. Again, those gaps
That's all
could be made up.
Verstappen.
Yeah, all those. I mean, and what's crazy about that is like Verstappen squandered away some points. That would have been even tighter if he wouldn't have gotten that penalty after
Right.
from last race. So Verstappen actually came into the news cycle this week after last week's race and did show some contrition. He was like, I shouldn't have done that, or it shouldn't have happened. I think is how he phrased it. It's like not completely like I blew it or anything like that. Not what you'd expect to hear from him, I guess. But anyway, yeah, he did say something about that in the news. So that's P4 Red Bull in the constructors, and then P5 is Williams. They are 90 points back in P5, so they got a bit of a gap. Whether they really can compete up there with the top 4, I don't think is probable. But the battle for P2 is looking real, and it was even tighter the week before the Spanish Grand Prix. But so we'll see what happens. I mean, we should all be having our eyes on that P2 spot in the constructors.
Yeah. And then the sort of the middle ground is where I think we're going to see a lot of shifting,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
As we saw, anything can happen. Hulkenberg scored a good chunk of points and pushed him all the way up into 11th in the standings for the driver's standings. And but everybody right there, from 10th all the way down to 15th, they're all within 10 points of each other. It's 10 to 20.
Yep.
And then 9th is just 1 point ahead at 21, which is Isaac Hadjar. So I'm really looking forward to Canada and kind of watching this middle ground battle to see who's going to stay in the top 10 and who's going to fall behind, because the points are so close. One wrong move is going to sort of ruin it for you, as we saw, right? Because Stroll, he dropped all the way down to 12th, so he dropped 2 points, and it's not looking good, especially with all his ongoing medical problems, supposedly quote unquote, with his wrist, and which remains to be seen. I do wish him a speedy recovery. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, because there's still only 3 drivers that don't have points, which are Bortoleto, Doohan, and Colapinto. Not that Doohan currently has the opportunity to score any, but uh, I don't know, man. It's
Yeah.
going to be interesting.
Well, so from eighth to ninth, Alex Albon is in eighth on 42 points. Hadjar is in ninth on 21. So there's a gap, and the types of points that these guys are putting up, you would expect if Hadjar was going to catch Albon, that's going to take multiple races for him to chip away slowly at that
Right.
gap, you know. But from Hadjar at 21 down to really the back of the grid, uh, that ground of 21 points could be made up in one race if something freak happened. We've seen some of that happen. We saw Alpine jump from P9 to P6 last year, I think it was, in the constructors based off of a wet race that they had a double podium finish.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the fun things about F1. I've always felt one of the things that's so cool about it, right, is like everybody will focus on the championship and see who's leading, but there's so much to play for back in the other spots. In this year where McLaren is running away with it on the constructors, something like what happened with Alpine last year with that jump is something very entertaining to watch and worth seeing, where you go, oh shoot, man, a one just freak double podium finish completely changes the result, the end result for a team. It's kind of that puncher's chance mentality that we see in boxing, right? Like you just land the right punch in the right circumstances, and your fortunes are changed. I mean, that's really what happens in the backs and middle parts of these standings with F1. I'm waiting to see it happen. I want some of that crazy stuff to happen. So maybe I will be praying for rain at the Canadian Grand Prix.
If it does, that'll make for an interesting one. That's for sure. Last year was quite entertaining, if you remember.
Yeah, it started wet. Some rain came in on Sunday and just threw a wrench in everything. Right, it was wet to the point that I think they were on full wets, right? Or
everybody started on inters except the Haas guys, who started on full wets,
and they were gaining ground, if I'm not mistaken, on the wets.
Yeah, not Hulkenberg. Kevin Magnussen started 14th, and within 3 laps he was up to 4th. So he moved up 10 positions in those short 3 laps. So he had a really good run.
Yeah. Sometimes those gambles, those are the exact gambles I'm talking about. It's like, okay, everybody's out there on inners. We throw on the wets. Let's just see what happens. It works. And, you can sometimes parlay that into good results. It doesn't always pan out. We've seen many gambles go south. When we're speaking of rain, a gamble that is classic to me was Lando chasing his first win in Sochi. I think it was a few years ago. Tried to gamble and stay on slicks when the rain came down. He was out in a comfortable lead, and then it just he lost control and he lost it. Didn't get his first win. It was really unfortunate. Those are the kind of gambles that it kind of these puncher's chance mentality. It doesn't always pan out, but when we see it happen, it's definitely fun to see. And I can say our text thread lights up when we see stuff like that. Everybody getting excited about stuff that is unexpected.
Yeah. Going back to Piastri. So Piastri being Australian, it led you into an interesting question: is who's been the most successful Australian in Formula One? And I know you've been doing a little bit of research on it this week. What have you surmised? What's your findings? Is there one that really stands out to you?
Yeah.
Did you learn a lot more names?
Yeah, I did learn some names which I've heard before but didn't really know about them. So I did a little bit of looking into it. I'll start with this. I will say Piastri appears to me to be in a top 5 of that group, and he'll even move up, I think, higher into that group if he does hang on to win the championship this year. So here's what I found: that there's really just 2 Australian World Championship champions. There are 5 that have race wins, and 6 that have been on the podium. The I think maybe the hands down number one Australian driver of all time is Jack Brabham, and this is all the way back in the 50s. I mean, really at the onset of Formula One. So it was a different era, but to his credit, he's got 3 world championships, 14 wins, and 31 podiums. So that seems in all phases to be clearly the best statistical uh, record for the Australian drivers. Um, I
And
think
he's
you have
also
some
the
more.
only team
Right.
owner to self drive for his own team and win a world championship in 1966.
So
I know
yeah,
we did a little bit of counting, and on the official F1 website for 1966, they only raced was it 9 races? Yep, 9 races. That was it.
yeah. So it was a different era for sure, but that doesn't mean it was any easier to be the champ. Really, I don't think. In fact, the less races that there were, maybe the more difficult it was. Also, the reliability of those old F1 cars was very bad. I think you looked into it, and there was a lot of DNFs back then.
Yeah.
Um,
And it doesn't seem like there was really any standardization either when you look at the 1966 list of races,
hmm.
um, because you can look at Monaco, which they did 100 laps of, which lasted over two and a half
Holy
hours.
cow!
But then they went all the way down to Italy, and it was an hour 47 minutes at only
Hmm.
68 laps.
Yeah, they were still figuring it out back then.
Yeah, no
It's pretty.
standardization anywhere.
It's pretty standardized now. But yeah, Jack Brabham, and I did look it up. I think that's how you pronounce the name. I tried to look up the pronunciation because I was like Brabham, and I've heard his name said before because I think because he's somewhat of a legendary character in F1. It's been brought up, but I never paid attention, enough. So my number 2 driver was Alan Jones. I categorize him as the second best. He won the world championship one time, 1980, if I'm not mistaken. So I wasn't even
With
born then.
Williams.
With Williams, yeah, that's right.
With Williams. Williams
Um,
Ford.
and he got 12 wins and 24 podiums. So those credentials seemed pretty hard to argue for number 2, the world championship. Those 2 guys were the only guys that won world championships, is Brabham and Jones. My number 3 is Mark Webber, who had 9 wins and 42 podiums. Um, and that just both of those categories, nobody else has more than those that are below him on my list. Daniel Ricciardo, I have at 8 wins and 32 podiums, number 4, and Oscar Piastri at 7 wins, 18 podiums. I think Oscar overtakes Daniel for the fourth best after this year, and because I think he's going to get multiple more wins, and he'll overtake probably Ricardo and Weber for number of wins. He won't be able to overtake them on podiums this year because there's just not enough races. But he might win the championship, which I think would propel him above Mark Webber. I don't know what you think about that, but if he wins the championship and gets several more wins this year, I think he becomes the number 3 uh, Australian driver. That's my take. I've been talking quite a bit. What about you? What are your thoughts? What did you find?
Yeah, so I would probably categorize them about the same way, with the exception of, well, you make a pretty good case for Mark Webber. Mark Webber is sort of a bit of an anomaly, right? Because he's been around for quite a bit of time. He's been a factory Porsche driver. He's raced at Le Mans and had, some success in racing for Porsche. Um, but never really, if we're going by world championships, he's not a contender, right? Um, but he that's not to say he's a slouch or anything, because he is a really fantastic driver. He's had moments of brilliance, even in cars that were not brilliant. Like when he raced for Minardi or Jaguar, just couldn't really make anything of those cars at the time. So kind of been short shafted on those.
I think he came in third in the constructors a couple of times. That's as close as he got to a championship, if I
With
might
Red Bull,
remember.
right?
Yep, a
Yeah.
third, a P3, a P6, and a P3. I think with Red Bull, if I'm remembering my research correctly. So
But it's hard to say because he was also racing against Vettel, right? And as good as Mark Webber is, he wasn't Vettel. Vettel just had something special and something different about him. I would probably even argue that even if Weber or if Vettel hadn't been at Red Bull at that time and had been at maybe say like Ferrari or Mercedes, I still don't think Weber would have beat Vettel. I think Vettel was just a different level of character. Um, that being said, I think if Oscar Piastri wins the world championship, I think he's going to be tied with Alan Jones. Like that's going to be like a nice 2-3 right there.
yeah, I would agree with that. And I mean, it would be arguable. He is Oscar better than Alan Jones? So you can't really compare against generations in this sport. Really, with any sport, we see it all the time in basketball or golf or whatever. People trying to compare across generations. Hard to
Right.
do. These stats though are pretty solid, and I agree. Like Piastri has the chance to tie Alan Jones's stats across the board or overtake them. One world championship, and then Alan Jones had 12 wins and 24 podiums. I mean, he could get there. Uh, Oscar's at 7 wins, 18 podiums. So he's just got to get 5 more wins. That's sounds easy, but it might be hard. And then 6 more podiums. Easily could get 6 more podiums this year. I don't think that should be difficult with uh, what is it, 15 remaining races left, and his McLaren, he should be able to tie him there. And yeah, I mean, it'd be debatable. Does he go up to number 2? Does he go up to number 3? I don't know, but I think he does jump Mark Webber if he gets that championship, and I think that's very possible for him to score that championship. We should say too, Mark Webber is his manager. So
Mark Webber is his manager.
yeah,
Australia
still
helping Australia, which is really nice.
yeah. So pretty cool.
I
You
think we also
mentioned
need to look at the class in which Alan Jones was racing against, right? Because he won the championship in 1980. Also, there were some big names racing against him, such as Nelson Piquet, who ended up finishing second in the championship. There was also Ricardo Patrese, KK Rosberg, who he himself became a championship winner just 2 years later in '82. There's also,
and that's
right,
Nico
yeah,
Nico Rosberg's dad.
that's Nico Rosberg's dad. But there's also Emerson Fittipaldi. There's Villeneuve, who was in there racing for Ferrari. Mario Andretti was still racing at that time, and Jody Scheckter and a up and coming Prost was racing at that time. So there's other big names as there as well. Like there's Derek Daly was there. There's Rennie Arnoux, Peroni, Carlos Reutemann. Some big names that he was running against. All of some which became champions. So a tough crowd to follow, right? I'm
Yeah,
sure that season was. I wasn't around then, but I'm
yeah,
sure that season was something of a hard one to win.
yeah. I think we'll look at this class as well right now. I mean, you'll say the same thing about Oscar, right? You'll say he was racing against uh, 4-time champ Max Verstappen, seven-time champ uh, Lewis Hamilton,
Yeah,
two-time champion Fernando Alonso. Yeah, I mean, I think that this is why it's hard to compare across. Especially, I think it's especially hard to compare generations in F1 because of the machinery changes that they do. It's just they make such significant changes to the vehicle. And if you look at a modern F1 car and compare it to a Jack Brabham F1 car, you wouldn't even know they're racing in the same type of. Apart from
right,
open wheel, you wouldn't know that they were the same kind of car. You know what I mean? Uh,
right.
they're just such different vehicles. But yeah, The only other guy to take a podium is someone I'd never heard of, Tim Schenken. I don't know if you've heard of him or anything like that, but that was the other
Name is not
Australian to
familiar
take
to
a
me.
podium. So yeah, but very cool. I like this. I think Oscar has the potential. If he can keep a good car, um, if he can keep a good car with McLaren, he to me he shows all the signs of becoming a dominant type of driver. Uh, I think he keeps it clean, and I think he's got a killer instinct similar to Max, but he is not as abrasive as Max at all. His personality is a little bit more tame and uh, quiet and soft spoken, and but yeah, I think he's got a lot of guts out there. That's the way he comes across to me. So yeah, um, very cool. Let's keep our eye on Piastri, and I'll definitely be wearing my Piastri hat when it's when he wins the championship, which I'm starting to think he's gonna do.
I don't know, man. His teammates giving him a pretty good run for his money.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, it seems like it's gonna be one of those McLaren guys that wins it, and it's just gonna be a matter of who. And I think we've said it. We've sort of alluded to it at other episodes throughout this year. That in the end, this could come down to a very interesting inter-team or intra-team fight for the championship, and there could be interesting things like team orders that come into play. There could be collisions between the two of them. I don't think there will be, but I could see it. Neither guy seems like they're so aggressive that they would jeopardize everything to try to, you know, just to pass one another. But we'll see. I don't know. It could come down to it. I mean, they both want that championship. I think Lando has a little more to prove. He's been in the sport a little bit longer. He's been um, criticized at times for not being the killer that Max is, and he's going against Max, who's one of the most ruthless dudes out there. And so, uh, I think that there's a little more pressure on Lando than there is on Oscar. If Oscar didn't win it, people wouldn't be like, "That's a bad season for Oscar." They would be like, "Okay, he's a younger driver than Lando," and
yeah, and it is still pretty early into, well, say it's pretty early. We're coming up on the halfway point, right? Because Canada is going to be round 10, um, and that's out of 24. So after Canada comes Austria, which I'm secretly kind of hoping Max Verstappen will win it just for the Red Bull team. Um, and then round 12 is going to be Great Britain, um, which if Hamilton could pull out a win there, that would be gigantic. But I'm not going to hold my breath for that one. So we are coming up on the halfway point, but there's still half a season to go, right? So anything can happen between now and then, especially with some of the more tricky races coming up, like Hungary. Hungary is usually kind of a tricky one, just because it's so narrow. Um, Netherlands usually provides some good race. Baku always seems to have a good race every year. Um, and then, of course, good old USA. Um, at Texas, I should mention, where you're going to be this year. So,
that's right.
and of course Vegas, which has been kind of a surprising showing. So, more to look forward to. I'm ecstatic for it. But Canada's gonna, if any past year is in indication, I think Canada will be another great race.
Yeah, Canada is a great track. It's sort of well known for being a difficult and fast track. I think I'll say like just the circuit in general, 14 turns and 70 laps is what we tend to do at Montreal. And the turn 14 chicane, right, is where they call the Wall of Champions.
The Wall of
And
Champions.
I had
One
to
of
look that
my
up because I was like, I know everybody says this, but I don't completely know. I know some champs have crashed there, but really, it was I think one single race where it kind of got that name. I want to say it was like 1999 or
It
something
was
like that.
99. Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, and Jacques Villeneuve all hit the wall, and it
All hit
became
the
the Wall
wall.
of Champions.
Yeah, and then I think subsequently other world champs have crashed there. So always be looking for the Wall of Champions to take somebody else out. We'll see if Max ever hits it or Fernando. If so, let's say this. Let's do this little ad. This is just impromptu. We didn't think about this beforehand, but we've got some world champs that are driving right now. We've got Max. We've got uh, we've got Hamilton, and we've got Fernando. Has anybody else? I think that's our three drivers that have won championships in the past, right? Nobody else.
No, I think that is everybody.
So, so which of those three is most likely to hit that wall, the wall of champions?
Ooh.
I say Fernando. He's
Um,
just not having a year.
I was funny. I was gonna say Fernando Alonso. I won't think he'll do it in the race. I think it'll be during one of the free practices. He'll probably give it just a little kiss, just to find, just how far he can go out into it. So we'll see. I don't foresee Max hitting it. I don't know that he's ever touched it actually.
When you think crash, you don't really think Max. I mean, when it comes to Max's collisions and crashes, they are almost always in some sort of heated rivalry situation where he's going for a gap that kind of doesn't exist, and they just come together. Like I'm thinking of like him and Hamilton dueling it out around like Silverstone or whatever, and um, but yeah, he drives so clean. You don't want to think that Max is going to hit a wall. At least not really wreck. He kisses a wall
Right.
here and there, but or a bollard. Uh, but but yeah, I mean Hamilton could crash out, but he's not. He's another one that I don't really think crash. And the only reason I'm thinking Fernando is because he's had a couple where he's spun or hit the wall this year. So
Yeah.
yeah,
He's been caught out, but I mean Sebastian Vettel's hit the wall. Jenson Button has hit the wall. Um, Even Montoya, I know he's not a champion. Um, he was a Champ Car champion, so I guess we still count it. But he's fallen victim to it. Um, I even think they moved the wall back just a little bit, and it's still it's still collecting names.
well, we got to keep our eye on the wall of champions and see who the next victim is. Um, so I guess you want to kind of recap last year's Grand Prix and maybe make a little bit of prediction about what's going to happen this year?
Oh, I would love to make some bold predictions for the upcoming race. But just to kind of recap, I think we kind of touched on a little bit, starting with how everybody except the Haas guys started on inters, with the Haas guys on full wets. K Mag running up, not by himself, of course. He had his teammate Nico Hulkenberg, who also was running up up the field with him, until it became too dry and they had to go onto the inters. Um, but I think we got a note. It was a lot of DNFs that race. We had both Williams, who were Albon and Sargent, both crashed out. Sargent, not so much a surprise for him, but you know, uh, Alex Albon going out. Sergio Perez had a rough race. He had a DNF, and then both Ferraris ended up having a DNF, which was very unfortunate. But the highlight was Alex Albon, overtaking, I believe it was Ocon and Daniel Ricciardo. He had the pass of the year going into the final chicane. Uh, Brake just a little late to overtake Daniel Ricciardo and just squeezed by Ocon and overtook him. I didn't think they were gonna all make it out of that one alive, so I'm glad that they did, and it made for a spectacular race. I still remember it because my brother Jake had just stepped out of the room and he heard all of us like going like no way, and he's like, what did I miss? I'm like, dude, you missed the pass of the year. So it's gonna be one to watch for sure.
It sounds familiar. I don't remember it offhand, so I'm gonna have to go back and I'll rewatch the highlights and check that one out. Yeah,
Oh, it's a good one.
but ultimately Albon didn't finish the race, right?
Yeah.
He had contact with Science, actually now teammates. So that's kind
Yeah.
of interesting. They had contact and neither of them finished the race. So yeah, kind of wild.
Um,
Other stuff. It was a Verstappen win last year, and I'm gonna go out on a limb. This wouldn't normally be a bold take, but I think Max is gonna win it again this year.
oh, really?
That's gonna be my bold take.
Okay. That's a good
So
one.
yeah, I mean, I think Max has shown uh, resilience and rebound on a number of occasions. And I think last week ended up being a bad week for him because of the aforementioned contact that he made with George Russell that earned him a 10-second penalty and dropped him all the way down to 10th. So I think he is going to understand that he's got to keep, especially with Tsunoda not bringing any results really for Red Bull. He's going to have to carry the team and he's going to hunt for that win. And I think he's got the chops to do it. It'll come down, of course, to the car and does the setup match, or can the setup do enough to get him to match the McLarens? And I think he pulls the win. That's my take.
Yeah, I'm secretly hoping, there will be a cold front that just randomly decides to move in and we'll get just a little precipitation just to make the race that much more interesting because when it rains in Canada, it always creates for some interesting drives.
Yeah,
As we've seen before, right? Australia was like that and it'll make it difficult, especially if it does dry up like it did last year.
yeah, yeah, yep. I mean, this is something that there's always a handful of rain races in the Formula One calendar, and last year that was Canada, and I think we'll kind of keep our eye out for that because it did shake things up quite a bit last time. I mean, although in the end it was a Verstappen, Norris, and Russell on the podium last year in Canada, which was it's not a really unexpected group to have up there, um, but yeah, I mean I always love a good rain race, and we see what happens when the drivers come out and get a chance to kind of showcase their skills on a little bit more even playing field.
Yeah, and all like we were talking about earlier, people DNFing is going to have a ripple effect on the rest of the field when it comes to the driver standings. And if we have five drivers, fall out of the top again, they had two Ferraris and a Red Bull fall out last year. It could really shake things up for the drivers' championship.
Yeah,
including the constructors championship, right? But last year, both Aston Martins were in the top 10. I would love to see both Aston Martins back in the top 10.
what do you think is going to happen this week with the
Man,
Aston team?
it's going to be tough, right? Fernando Alonso, he had points last race, so he seems to be on the up and up. And barring, any unforeseen circumstances, I really hope that he can continue on this upward trajectory and get more points. As for Lance Stroll, I've heard rumors and seen, sort of some rumors going around on Instagram that he's going to be ready for the race. And if that's true, good. I'm glad that he will be back. I hope he has a successful race because I would kind of like to see him get back in the top 10 in the drivers' standings. If not, I've seen rumors that Valtteri Bottas might get the call up and step in to go race. How true that is, I've got no idea. But if it is, I hope Bottas will go out and kind of show him what's what. It'll be a really good opportunity for him to show that he still has what it takes. And should the opportunity arise, maybe he'll come back into F1. I mean, he is a reserve driver for Mercedes at the moment. And, he did have success and he was supposed to be the next world championship when he was originally signed. So people have thought a lot about him. he did show a lot of promise, and I think he still has what it takes to be a competitive driver.
Yeah, I mean, you could be right. He spent his last driving seasons with Sauber and wasn't wasn't really able to do much there because the car is just not good. I like his personality. I think he seems like a nice guy, and he's funny. Like he's turned out to be quite the character on social media. He's also a coffee lover. This is like a big thing about him. He's super into coffee, and he's like a connoisseur. And so I've kind of heard about that, and I myself love coffee. So like that's a thing that I feel like. I don't know. That's not a good reason to be a fan, but I guess it's just one of those extra things. But yeah, it's hilarious stuff with his, you know, his going to the sauna and the in the Drive to Survive, he's like his bare butt is like sticking out, and then he took pictures that like he had like a picture of him in stream that he sent to,
Yeah.
I think it was Lewis Hamilton. I mean, he just seems like he's got some personality there. I think it's great, and so I'd love to see him back. It was always kind of awkward for him when he was at Mercedes, and he was capable of getting race wins, and he frequently pulled his weight as the number 2 driver behind Hamilton. I thought, I mean, way better than any of the number 2 drivers that Red Bull have seemed to be able to do behind Max Verstappen. So, it was very common to see him finish second place or third place behind Hamilton when they were dominant with Mercedes. So, yeah, I thought he was pretty decent driver given the right machine.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't think his stats truly reflect, um, what kind of driver he is, because there were multiple times where, while being teammates with Lewis Hamilton, where Valtteri was asked to play the team game and to step down and give Hamilton preferential treatment. Um, and I think he would have been way more competitive and maybe even had a world championship under his belt had he not been asked so frequently to move out of the way for Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, he could be right, and I mean, yeah, it's hard to know, but yeah, let's see him in there. I think his name is also being batted around as a top candidate, along with Sergio Perez for Cadillac. So that's another option that we might see, where we might see him, slide back into Formula One, uh, and yeah, that would be awesome. I got nothing but love for Bottas, and I'd love to see him stick around, the Finnish driver. So he's he's our only Finnish driver at the moment, right? I don't think
The
there's any
Flying
other.
Finn.
For a while, we had what Kimi Räikkönen was.
Kimi Räikkönen, the other Flying Finn.
Yeah,
Every Finn ends up being a Flying Finn
yeah,
for one reason or another. Although I think Kimi's more the Iceman than anything else.
yeah. Well, Mika Hakkinen is from Finland, not
Yeah,
if I'm not
another
mistaken.
Flying Finn.
So yeah, he's in a group there. I mean, those guys are big names. They're not slouch drivers by any means. I mean, Hakkinen, I think, is considered one of the best ever. Up there with some of the top drivers. Raikkonen won 1 or 2 championships, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Just one.
One
With Ferrari.
Yeah. And I think he was known as the Iceman because I mean, it makes good sense. Finland, of course, a cold country, but then he was just so, he came off so cold with his media presence. He just very
wasn't
short,
really for it, huh?
yeah, very short answers. Or he was famous for DNF in Monaco, and he just like went out and got on the yacht or something like that.
Yeah, and started drinking. Didn't even make it back to the garage.
So definitely a different kind of character. Maybe that's what we need to do one of these days, James. We did an Australian drivers, Finnish drivers.
Oh,
we
man,
could
that
do
would
that
be a
breakdown.
tough one to do.
We don't have to do this with every nationality. I just thought it was interesting with Oscar, and I was like, let me look into this a little bit. But I thought that was a good segment. I thought that Australia, yeah, that was cool. I thought digging in there, that gave me a little taste of some of the past, the history, and maybe we wouldn't get so deep if we went with Finland. But anyway, yeah. So, do we need to do any other bold predictions? I made one. What do you got?
Well, I think I'm going to count my double Aston Martin coming back into the top 10 as my bold prediction for the Canadian Grand Prix. Uh, and I'll stick with that whether or not Lance Stroll ends up making the race. Um, but I kind of really like your bold prediction. I think Verstappen, I think he's got a good chance at winning the race. He seems to always really do well there. He won last year. He timed his strategy just right to get ahead and win and hold the win. So I like that one. Other than that, I'm not really sure. I think for another one, I'm gonna put George Russell's gonna come in second. I'll say that. I'll say he'll emerge victorious over those papayas.
So McLaren, where do you think they're going to end up if they're not in first or second? Are we going to get one on the podium at least?
I think one will be there. I think it'll be Piastri if that's not too bold to say. He didn't really have a good run last year, but I think he'll redeem himself this year.
Piastri was P5 in Montreal last year, which isn't a bad result, but he was behind Russell and Hamilton both. So yeah, he would have to have a better outing this time. I do think that your Aston Martin both in the top 10. That's like a Don bold bold prediction.
Did I go
right
too
there.
bold this week?
You might have, man. You might have, but I like it. I like you brought it this time. I went with a more tame one because I'm getting destroyed on my bold predictions this year. So yeah, I like. I think Max is going to win, but I'm going to go ahead and say I think that the two McLarens will end up on the podium. Behind that, I don't really know who will line up. I'm kind of expecting. I'm expecting at least it to be a Ferrari or a Mercedes on that P4 slot. That's as much as I'm willing to go. It's as I'm thinking it through, just thinking out loud, I don't think it's going to be Antonelli. I don't know. Antonelli seems like he's sliding just a little bit backwards. So yeah, it'll probably be George in P4 or Charles or Hamilton. What I'd really like to see, I want to see Hamilton in that P4 spot. I've been kind of harsh on Hamilton, but actually I think he's putting together a decent season. Ferrari is in P2 in the constructors, so he can't be doing too bad, so he's doing pretty good. Just like I've been too harsh on Stroll, and he's actually pulled some decent points. I don't think I've been unfairly too hard on Alonso. He's been having a hard time. He just got his first points last week, so there's that.
It took him 9 races to do it. Jeez.
Yeah, kind of unheard of. I don't know. Something must be going on over there. Yeah, that's. I don't really see any other bold predictions that are calling to me. So, I guess I'll stick with that. The Red Bull.
Let's do like P1. A joint one. What do you think's going to happen with Alpine? What do you think they're going to make of this upcoming race? Because they had a mixed result last year, and they just don't seem to be having it this year. Do you think Colapinto's going to sneak out of the bottom 5? No.
Nah, I haven't. I'm not banking on Colapinto yet. So last year it was Ocon and Gasly, right, for Alpine,
right? And they finished 9th and 10th, but both Ferraris DNF'd. So,
I honestly, Alpine to me is. I'm not. I don't have a lot of confidence in either driver. Like Gasly to me is the superior driver, but he's just the car must not be good because Gasly is better than the car, I think.
I'll agree with that.
And I just so to me when it comes to Alpine, the circumstances have to present. It's almost like last year where we were talking about how there was a wet race. I don't remember where it was, maybe Brazil or something, and they both pulled out a podium, and then that jumped them up. I mean, they're in dead last in the Constructors' Championship right now. that's not good for Alpine. This is a team with the history and pedigree uh, as Renault that they should be doing better than dead last. And I mean, they are a clear dead last. I think P8 and 9 are tied. At it's not a lot of points. I think they're at 16 at points, and Alpine's on 11. So Sauber and Aston are both tied at 16 points for eighth and ninth, and then Alpine's dead last with 11 points total. So
Yeah, it's kind of unusual for a factory team to be that far down. You expect like a privateer team to be at the bottom, right? Like Williams or Haas, which
yeah,
they had been, but yeah, I
yeah,
think you're right. It is tough. I was just kind of looking briefly at how our boy Gasly's doing. He's got one disqualification in China. He's got a DNF in Saudi Arabia, DNF at Monaco. But his last outing, he was eighth and then seventh in Bahrain. But every other race, with the exception of Australia, he was 13th. So he's averaging out to be kind of right around 10th. I'm hoping he ekes in and just gets that 1 point in 10th. That would make me really happy. I'm gonna go opposite on you. I think Colapinto will sneak of the out of the bottom five, even if it's just 14th or 15th. I would really like to see something come of it. Maybe he'll get lucky. Who knows? Maybe he'll finish 11th or something like that.
or or maybe Flavio will put some jet fuel in his car or something. I don't know.
find a way around the rules and do a little cheating, huh?
Maybe so.
And that wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, that's
maybe,
right.
Maybe Colapinto will take a dive and we'll see Piastri win. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh boy. Wow. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to having another race to watch.
Yeah, it's on my list. It's one of my favorites. It's definitely in the top 5 for races for me. I think I always enjoy the Canadian Grand Prix.
Well, we've talked about it before. You and me and others on our little F1 chat about where we want to go, and that's one that's attainable. It's just right up in Montreal, which is not super far for us to go, and it's not as expensive, I don't think. So I've heard great things about Montreal as just a destination to travel to as well. I've got a friend who went up there last year, not for the race, but just to go hang out. And he said it's really cool. It's like French Canadian kind of vibe up there. So, yeah, we needed to pencil that one in. I still want to go to Vegas. Vegas is like, I could drive there, I think you could as well. Just road trip to it. So that would be one to go to. It's just so expensive. It's a very expensive race. I think last year they started doing some more reasonable general admission type stuff, but I wasn't sure where you could actually stay. Like, so you'd probably have to find an Airbnb or a Verbo or something, and then find your way down there to scope it out. But yeah, that's one I want to get to. For some reason I don't have a lot of pull for Miami. I don't know what the deal is there, but I mean, I haven't written it off. I would go if the price was right, I guess. So yeah, but I think it would be a little bit weird to ditch to go to the Canadian Grand Prix before I've gone to all the U.S. Grand Prix. Having said that, one of my good buddies is going to Spa this year, and I'm so jealous that he's going. He's going to like his family got him tickets for Christmas or something like that, just to go to the race out there. So they're going to go, and they're also going to go do some other touristy stuff, including check out some of the World War II sites and stuff like that. So shout out to my buddy Greg, who does listen to this podcast. Have fun in Spa, Greg. I'm super jealous.
Yeah, I'm super jealous too. That's probably the number one track that I want to go to would be Belgium.
Yeah, man, it would be, that would be sick.
You have to go see the track, right? Like just for the one the one corner he's running down the hill.
So I'll tell you this is kind of offbeat here, but maybe of interest to anybody who listens. There's I'm until recently I was a federal employee, right? And I'm always looking for federal jobs over in Europe. And So I kind of there's a website you can go to like subscribe to what federal jobs are out there, and then you can set up a search and have it email you stuff. So way back in probably January of this year, so probably about 5 months ago, I applied for a job in Belgium. They have some sort of a NATO type job. I think there's a NATO headquarters in Belgium, and it's just a finance type job. It's nothing amazing or anything, but it was there, and it was in my same pay category and all this kind of stuff. So I applied for it, and a few weeks ago, I actually got a notice that I was referred to them, referred to the hiring manager or whatever. So I mean, this has happened before. I've gotten referred before, but I definitely was like, man, that would be sweet, dude. Get it gig over in Belgium. I would be at that F1 race every year. But yeah, we'll see. Nothing's happened yet. All of that notice means is that they could call me for an interview. So if you want to know somebody in Belgium that could house you while you're coming over to see the race at Spa, you better pray for my job to come through over there.
I'm gonna have to start going to mass.
That's right. Put a little donation in there. Please make it happen.
I know. I'm gonna light all the candles, put quarters in all the donation boxes. Anything that'll help, man.
Yeah. That'd be pretty awesome. I gotta say. I mean, I don't even know what I would do if they offered me that job. That's one of those life decisions where you just have to go, oh my gosh, why did I really mean to apply for this thing? But I mean, it'd be so tempting because Belgium's a really cool place. I mean, I've never been there, but I've checked it out because I've thought about moving there with these federal jobs or whatever, and it just looks awesome. And of course, Spa is fantastic. It's one of the most scenic places on the calendar as well. I think the rising elevation on the track where you're coming through Eau Rouge, and all those trees all around and everything, very, very cool.
Yeah, it's on my list for sure. So maybe we'll have to make that happen at some point.
I agree. It sounds amazing.
I'm always down for a Europe trip.
Yeah, if I could save up the money, I'd do it.
Got to stop buying guitars.
Well, there's that.
Yeah. All right, man. I appreciate you joining me again this week. It's always a good time to catch up and talk everything Formula One. So
for sure, man. We don't forget to go look up where your local poutine restaurant is. We gotta make that happen for Canada.
Some cheesy fries. I'm all for it.
That's right.
All right, man. I will talk to you next week.
All right. Adios.
Adios.